Hi, it's Jonathan, the Cage Stage Crusader, coming from my Fortress of Theology. And these are reasons why I do not want to return to church. Basically, it comes down to the fact that the vast majority of church leadership betrayed Jesus and the church they serve during COVID. They shut the doors, and all these big shot pastors with their big shot seminary degrees spent 2 years telling people, you don't have to come to church. You can just watch YouTube videos at home and it's just as good. So I don't want to return because, well, the pastors don't see any value in church. They don't want people there. They spent 2 years telling them that their church is meaningless and there's no point at all in meeting the worship Christ. I also don't want to return because all of my Christian friends canceled me because I refused to go along with the lies and the propaganda and undermine my moral integrity. I refused to throw out my ethical values and flush them down the toilet in service of Caesar and a constantly shifting narrative. And all the so-called Christian friends I had just canceled me. Some didn't even bother to tell me why. They just stopped contacting me at all and refused any communication. Now, as somebody who spent 20 years in the occult and philosophical Satanism and just a whole lot of misery because of it, my moral values and the moral integrity Christ has given me are the only things of value I possess. Everything else is worthless. And my church was demanding that I throw out my moral values and go along with lies. God says, thou shalt not bear false witness. That's exactly what these pastors have been doing. And they refuse to confess. They refuse to admit that they were wrong. They refuse to acknowledge that the government was wrong and malicious and downright evil. And honestly, pastors these days and church leadership in general cannot be trusted. Like, you walk into the average church, it's an obnoxious rock concert with theologically vacuous music that tries to manipulate you into an emotional experience instead of raising your mind towards God. And then the pastor gets up and it's a long-winded, narcissistic monologue with a few religious buzzwords thrown in to justify its existence. I don't want that. I don't want a dead, empty church that doesn't care about the Christian faith. You know, I'd rather have like Christian friends who actually value moral integrity and values and stand for the truth instead of fear and capitulation to tyranny. The church in general is a kind of worthless, really, these days. Like, there's well over a dozen churches within walking distance of me. Not a single one took a serious stand against these COVID lockdowns. Not one. They either remained silent and hoped they weren't noticed, or they went along and went overboard and trying to please Caesar. None of them have any Bible studies. None of them have any sort of evangelism. None of them have any prayer meetings. And honestly, the sermons are just me, mixed with a motivational talk. It's all a bunch of self-glorifying narcissists. The church doesn't want to do its job. Church leadership doesn't want to do its job. Like, thousands of pastors in Canada now are no longer fit for ministry because they went along with Caesar and told their congregations the Christian faith is not relevant. The theological beliefs of the church are not relevant. They're not important. They can be discarded and thrown away. And you can just sit at home and watch YouTube videos, and that's just as good. There is no value to the church in Canada. There hasn't been for decades. Like, come on, the Conservative Party long ago stopped making bullshit, empty promises they have no intention of fulfilling towards Christians. They don't even bother anymore. We're not even part of the cultural voice. Why? Because the church is run by a bunch of morally weak, pusillanimous cowards with spines of jelly. They have no moral integrity. They refuse to stand on scripture. They refuse to stand for values. They're moral cowards. They are weak. They treat their congregations like they are stupid and can't understand anything, which is why they result talking about childhood puppy dogs instead of dealing with the text of scripture. And I am sick of it. I don't want a mediocre church that doesn't place any value on the Christian faith. And honestly, I can't find a single church that actually takes the faith seriously. They've all gone overboard in like praising Caesar and being a slave to the government, or they've gone woke, progressive, stupid, and put up a bunch of pride flags. There's no substance to any churches anymore. And frankly, I don't want a dead, empty church. Like, why should I drag myself out of bed Sunday morning to listen to an obnoxious rock concert that gives me a headache, does nothing to edify me, and then listen to some jackass get up and talk about how great he is and throw in a few religious buzzwords as if that's a sermon or edifying to the Christian faith in any meaningful way. I am just so sick and tired of worthless churches that Christ would spew out of his mouth. They are weak, they are lukewarm, they promote all sorts of moral depravity, or they remain silent on the evils of this world. Like, it's just, I can't stand it anymore. I get more edification and more value sitting at home and listening to some like John MacArthur preaching or something. I would rather be in a church, but unfortunately, no such place exists within my city. And it's just, yeah, I'm sick of this crap. Church leadership needs to get their shit together. Seriously. I'm sick of your crap. Knock it off.